What's up guys, and welcome back to the Hyundai IONIQ 5N. This is a 2025 model year. This is its owner, Timur. You recently took this to the track, bone stock, stock tires, stock brakes, stock alignment, and you did a 152.5 lap time. Tell me about that experience, and then let's also go into some of the quirks that you've noticed when living with this car on a daily basis.
My wife and I got this car as a daily. We are petrol heads and track addicts. We go to track days, do time trials. Both of us have GR86, so we already had sporty cars. We decided to buy this car just because it's spacious, but it's also electric, so we don't need to worry about not warming up our cars on our relatively short commute to work. Opened the doors and we saw checkered flag things, details everywhere, and how fun it is relative to any other EV on the market that we're aware of, at least. So we decided to try the whole EV thing. It's our first EV. We weren't actually planning to track it because it's a big, heavy, powerful car.
4,800 pounds.
With the driver, yeah, 5,000 pounds
yeah.
Basically, right? When I first learned about the car, was when a few of my friends sent me links to some reviews or whatever, and like, what do you think? My first idea, this is absolutely stupid. Why would you make an SUV that weighs so much and has so much power a track car? This is ridiculous. Who would ever buy that? Next thing I know, right, I'm buying it. As a Hyundai owner, apparently you can get invited to free track days, so didn't bother even changing the brake fluids, pads, tires, whatever. Let's just see how it goes.
Yeah.
And then as the day progressed, we kind of got comfortable with the car, more and more confident. And the thing that just completely blew my mind and convinced me that, okay, I can actually try to go fast in this car, is after every session, no matter how slow or fast we were trying to go, there was so little heat coming from the brake rotors. Even in a like Miata or an 86, if you stop the car right after a session, you can feel the heat.
Well, you can see it. It's
you can see it sometimes. Yeah. Right after my first session, I went out and checked how warm the rear brake rotors were, and they just weren't.
But you did it again later, and it's like, okay, it continues to stay cool. So why is that? I know the answer, but tell the audience, why is that?
Well, magic, right? Sure. just kidding. No, I mean, at least based on the Savage Geese video, there are functional brake ducts on all corners. I also found what seems to be a functional vent in the rear bumper on behind each tire, air curtains and not fake vents around the tire. So it looks like the engineering team put some effort into cooling this down, just
using conventional airflow methods, right?
Using conventional airflow methods, but then on top of that, they also did a lot of engineering around regen, and they, at least at the time of the release, they claimed this was the most powerful regen on the market.
Right.
I'm a huge geek when it comes to data logging on track and things like that. So one of the things I figured out before the track day was how to data log how much power the battery generates or regenerates. And I was completely blown away that the car under braking regenerates 300 kilowatts of power.
Which is roughly 400 horsepower.
Which is roughly 400
which is more
horsepower.
than that makes.
Which is more than your Integra, which is more than any of the cars I've ever owned.
Yeah.
And it's sure, like Cayman GT4 is a little more than that, but still it's basically Cayman power, right? Off regen, not even going straight, going backwards basically, right? It's rated 641 horsepower with the N-Green boost, 470 kilowatts, and I saw 450 in my data logs. So I wasn't getting 100 performance, but I was getting pretty close. Yeah,
about within like 5% or so.
Or so, yeah.
I've driven one of these before. I only did like less than one lap at Road America, and then I drove it around town and the surrounding area. I could not stop smiling and giggling through the paddle shifters here with the fake engine sound. It sounds like this aggressive little 4-cylinder. Everything has this sort of synthetic look, feel, sound to it, but that doesn't detract from the fact that this is the only EV on the market that's trying to inject that kind of old school, almost cartoonish like fun into a car that you look at from the outside, you look at the specs on paper, it doesn't make any sense as to why it works, but it does. And when I say it works, it means it literally makes you laugh. And that's the whole point of this car. Even though it's capable of decent lap times and whatnot, that's not its primary goal. Its primary goal to give you the best of both worlds, in a sense that you can drive it as a normal EV. It's got plenty of space in the back. It's comfortable, all the tech you could want.
And by the way, it can be completely silent. I know some people
It can be completely silent.
are really critical about the fake engine noise. No problem. Press a button.
Yeah, and it just
sounds
becomes
like
a regular
Tesla,
EV. Yeah.
You can even change the torque split. You can make
Right.
it entirely front-wheel drive tire shredder or entirely rear-wheel drive driftmobile.
So I think what I want to kind of highlight in this video as we get going on the fun part of this drive is that I want to see manufacturers try to inject more of that sort of old school fun into their cars without sacrificing what an EV is good at. And I think Hyundai has done a pretty good first attempt here. I think in the future, I would like to see cars with like more range, for example, or like a slightly less cartoony sound.
I want to add that at that free track day, there were a bunch of Hyundai people there. They were driving with huge smiles on their faces.
They like to have fun.
If I ran into someone like that in a bar, I would have never thought that they're like some big executive or whatever at a big car company. My understanding is 5N is kind of their experiment of can an EV be fun? Can it be a driver's car? And I mean, compared to all the other EVs that I have tried, seen, or even watched reviews online, this seems like
answer is yes.
Not just the answer, but really a benchmark. And now BMW M, someone asked in an interview, what do you think about 5N? And they kind of politically answered, but you can see between the lines that this car is on the radar. It's a car that BMW M considers as showing everyone basically what fun performance EVs can be.
Yeah, a pretty solid intro. Let's go ahead and drive this thing, and I'm really curious what this thing feels like out here, because on track you feel the weight of the car, but at the same time it doesn't feel like a 4,800 pound car. It feels like something like maybe 1,000 pounds lighter than that, if that makes sense. All right, time for a canyon drive in the 2025 Hyundai IONIQ 5N. We have strut front, multi-link rear suspension, and we're on the OEM Pirelli P0 tires. They're 275 width all around. 4,800 pound dual motor EV SUV. It just shouldn't, on paper, do well on a tight and technical road like this. But every other Hyundai N product I've driven has been extremely impressive dynamically, so I'm not going to expect anything less from this one. Sport mode, and then we have it in the fake shifting mode. Just a little bit of sound as we set away here. At low RPMs, it actually does a pretty convincing job at making my ears feel like this is just a 4-cylinder turbo hot hatch. That dip in torque as you shift is just so hilarious. It's so exaggerated. See that rev counter flashing my peripheral? Good brake feel. I mean, the rotors and calipers on this car are massive. They absolutely need to be to handle this heavy of a vehicle on track. Wow. This thing is so fast. We have the adaptive dampers in sport mode, and it's actually handling these bumps with a lot of poise. There is a little bit of body roll, but oh wow, this does not feel like a nearly 5,000 pound vehicle. I'm sitting relatively high up, even though relative to the car, I'm actually sitting nice and deep in the cabin, which feels great. But yeah, the center of gravity of this thing, it's almost deceiving because you feel like you're sitting so high up. The car looks quite tall from the outside, but when you drive it, it feels really just kind of nimble and willing to turn. And largely that's because it's an EV. All the batteries are mounted nice and low. You know, one thing I love about the way they simulate this transmission, beyond the shifts themselves, it's the fact that it simulates an actual internal combustion engine's torque curve. For example, if I put it into 6th gear and floor it, the engine kind of lugs a bit. But in the lower gears, you get that nice build in torque as you rev the engine out. But now I wish they would have given this an even more sort of aggressive / exotic option for the sound. Imagine a 9,500 RPM Lexus LFA sound. As comical as that would be, I mean, it would make me smile, and I would always run it in that mode when I'm trying to have a good time. See right there, I'm in 3rd gear, and the build and torque was exactly what I would expect from an internal combustion vehicle in 3rd gear with a powerful turbocharged engine. Barely any understeer. The car actually feels really neutral, and I can attack these corners with alarming speed. Oh, this thing is just a riot. Even better than I expected, because I did do that 1 lap at Road America, and that's a very smooth, well-paved track with more mid-speed to high-speed corners, whereas this road is a lot more technical, actually, in some regards. Even though you're not driving at the limit, it's a lot bumpier, and the corners are a lot tighter. So it's an environment where a car like this shouldn't do as well. And yet, I would argue this is even more impressive out here. The level of modulation in this brake pedal, it's a lot better than even a lot of actual internal combustion engine performance cars. The steering, it's pretty numb. There's not a whole lot of feedback about the road surface, but it's precise. It's easy to place the front end. The front tires follow exactly what I do with the steering, with very little delay. What a car. What an experience. I almost want to go back and just do that little run again, but I'll preserve Timur's battery here. He does have to make it home. And that's kind of one of the drawbacks of the IONIQ 5N, is that it's only rated at a little over 220 miles of EV range on a full charge. And that is, you know, not great. A modern Tesla Model 3 Performance will give you over 300. And because this car is so fun to drive, if I were to own it, I doubt I would see more than 160 or 170 miles on a single charge. I would just be hooning it everywhere. Like so. The straight line performance is very impressive, but it's no Tesla Model S Plaid, obviously. I drove one of those a couple weeks back, so it's still fresh in my memory, and this is nowhere near as accelerative. But it does feel more or less on par with a Model 3 Performance, which is a very, very quick car. But all things aside, I mean, just look at the way it handled that bump right there. That is top-notch suspension tuning from an OEM. It just gives you the perfect balance of compliance and control. And I appreciate the fact that there is a little bit of body roll baked in here, because it lets me feel what the car is doing around every corner. But all in all, what an impressive vehicle. This is still the most fun EV, and most actually impressive dynamically, EV that I have driven. The Model S Plaid, while the straight line performance is absolutely ludicrous, the rest of that car, the steering, the suspension, it all felt a little bit compromised, especially the brake pedal on that car. This one does a pretty damn good job at convincing my senses that I'm just in a normal internal combustion engine performance car. There are a few giveaways. Sometimes that 1 to 2 shift, if I shift a little too close to redline, that sudden drop in torque is a little exaggerated. And obviously the fake engine sound, while it does a reasonably good job, it still could be tuned to be a little bit more realistic. But what a great first attempt, and I can't wait to see what they bring out next. And I hope some other manufacturers with a sense of humor will follow suit and inject a little bit more personality into the world of performance EVs. So big shout out to Timur Let me know what you think of the Hyundai IONIQ 5N. Is it a vehicle full of gimmicks? Does that even matter? The fact that it puts a smile on my face is reason enough for me to want one of these. But I know a lot of people feel very differently than I do. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.